First thing we do is log into Beams. Select the job we're going to estimate, load it into the system, copy quantities. This allows us to copy a template which will contain all the information that requires measurement. Here we're copying from the clad timber frame job into our test project. Add or edit quantities. When we open this window, we'll see all the items that exist in this job but with no values. Items shown in blue are what we call included prescription items. Items shown in maroon are what we call results or selection items. All the items that require measurement, we would enter the value directly into the measure field. Or we could use CAD image to allow us to measure directly from the drawing. First thing we must do is open up a drawing. If that drawing has multiple pages, we'll select a page and we'll also select the DPI that we require. First thing we must do is set the scale, so we set lineal meters. Left click at the start of the dimension, left click at the end of the dimension, right click to store the value. Calculate asks us to enter the measure. Here we'll enter 11.6. That's the scale set. We no longer need that information. We can now proceed to estimate. First item in the list, as we see, is the internal floor area. As before, left click anywhere on the screen to start and start measuring the outside of the building. Right click when we're finished. Calculate puts it in the list and Build will put it in the job along with the prescriptions that are associated with it. Here we'll see all the original inclusion items. The ones that are ticked and highlighted are the ones that currently exist in the job. We could turn them off if we don't require them, or turn them on if we do. The maroon items are now what we call the selection items. They are now displayed and we can select the method of construction. Here we've picked ground slab concrete, ceiling area insulation, and we can pick any material that exists in our price list, or if required we could double click and add a new material. All the items that are associated with those, the inclusion items, are now displayed and the process continues. Because we've selected a concrete slab, we'll enter the slab thickness. Next record. Outside floor area, al fresco. As before, left click, right click to store, calculate to put it into the list, Build to allow us to select the items within it. Here we'll select ceiling insulation, R4 again. We'll do external ceiling lining and we'll do brick paving. Painter for the ceilings. Paving labour. Cartage for the paving bricks. Moving on to the garage or carport as before. As before, we'll do gyprock ceiling grano, we will actually do a 100mm slab. Left click, right click, calculate, build. Now we won't select the PowerPoint. And we'll put a nice timber ceiling. Here you'll see we've got two choices. It could either be the number of sheets or simply a square metre. We'll select the square metre. Carpenter, painter. We can select the roof structure, timber roof trusses, or a stick roof, or steel trusses. We'll do a stick roof, hardware allowance. Roof cover, tiles, clay tiles, or a colorbond roof. We'll select colorbond. Insulation. This is letting us know that we've made a selection to add items that are currently added to a composite item. So for roof structure, it is simply a composite item, and this will be adding the rates of battens onto that composite item, which is quite okay. Tiled floor areas. This is the gross area of the floor. Bathtubs, vanity cupboards, shower screens, we'll add those later and it will make the adjustments as required. Here we can see there's a shower screen, a bathtub. They are the items within this wet area. Tiling for the floors, tiling for the walls. We're being warned that we've made two selections for the one category. That's quite okay. When I measure the laundry, I'll actually go inside the cupboard because we'll want tiles on the floor through to the cupboard. None of these items are required, simply tiling. Because powder room exists in the template but it doesn't exist in the job, we'll simply skip past it to the WC. because pedestal pan is selected, you'll notice that if I deselect it, all the items associated with it become automatically deselected. So pedestal pan allows all the items associated with it to also be selected. We can, if required, turn those items off. It's calling for the crossover now, so what we can do is open up another tab. We'll call that site plan. You see here we have two now. We have our floor plan and our site plan. As before, first thing we have to do is set the scale for the new tab. Lineal meters. Now we'll measure the crossover. The plan calls for paving, so that's what we'll select. External walls times the height, so we need an elevation. We see here that the elevation calls for ceiling height of 2400. So our external walls are we'll calculate it to the underside of the eaves, which would be 2150 plus the two courses, 2232. Now, because we've got to the end, right click stores the value, but there's still more to measure. We can simply start another line. Every time we right click, the value is stored in the list. We need to highlight all three records using the shift key, calculate, build. External wall finishes. Internal cavity wall areas, gyprock. Fixing carpenter, painter. Internal partition walls, we know they're 2.4. As before, when we get to the end of the wall, right click to store the value. As before, we need to highlight all the records. And we'll put some internal wall insulation. Here we're measuring the area where a footing will sit. And as before, there is more than one selection. To add some footing for the columns, it'll make a provision for some water service, drainage and some reinforcement. Concrete. Footing height and footing width. Windows. So let's start with some 2.143. So there's a window here. And that's we can put a description in. We'll change now to windows at a 0.6. That's about all the windows. These are all the available selections as before. Lintels, nosings, We see here the kitchen doesn't actually have a built-in pantry. Linen cupboard. Here we can enter 4 shelves. Linear meters of gutter on fascia. We can zoom out if required. As before, here it's showing a zinc aluminum gutter. We'll select colour bond and deactivate the painter. Downpipes are the same, we'll leave those in zinc aluminum. Fascia also is zinc aluminum. Standard fixed items. Now these are miscellaneous things that are associated to the job. We can click anywhere and we'll notice it becomes an item. Right click to store the value. Calculate, build, allows us to see what all these fixed items are. Hot water system, waste bins, toilet, shed. These are all the things that are just standard to the job. As before, click somewhere, right click, calculate, build. Again, these are all the things that are associated as fixed fees and charges. Single side light frame. Now here we see that the entry is actually a double side light frame. So let's edit that record. And we see here there are no double side light frames, so we'll simply add one. Unit description will be item. The value, you need to check in your price list, we'll give it $350. You could also store an image of the material item if required. The item is now in the list, and as before, select it, calculate, build. All the items that are associated will come up. Double jams. You see there's one here. Gas bayonets, no. Valley flashings. As before, select all 3 items. Mirror drobes, it has none. Steel beams, it has none. But if the garage were to have one, we would simply measure it and build it into the job. Steel beams internal. As we see, these are LVL, so we won't bother. Bulkheads, coffered ceilings. We notice there's one in the theatre. It'll make a provision for some timber and the carpenter. Any additional cabinet tops, we'll put one in here. Kitchen cabinets, again, simply lineal metres. Plates, oven. Put an appliance cabinet. Now all these items are items within our price list, so we'll have a rate for all these items. We can confirm any of the items by just checking what the price is. Vanity cupboards in the bathroom. If there were 2 basins, we would simply enter 2. In this case, however, there is 1. We notice here it's a semi-recessed basin, so we'll need to change that. Skirtings, if we wanted to measure them, and as before, we would measure in this situation. We're only going to put skirting in the main area. We notice carpenter, painter associated to the skirtings. Channeling grate if required across the carport front. Garage door. And that's it. We've done that in real time. We've completely priced that entire job. We notice here that every item that we've measured has also built in everything that's associated with it, and it's brought up a value of the entire project. It's now simply a process of going through the job and make sure that everything that we require is within the job. We could print an addenda for the customer, and the items marked as spec would be the items that are included in the specification report. if we want to save these drawing items, we can. That will store the drawing with all the associated items that we've measured from the list. And that is it.